Hello and a very warm welcome to Evolving Consciousness. Today's video we are going to discuss about leading without a title. Now this particular concept, leading without a title, was introduced to me from this phenomenal book called The Leader Who Had No Title by Sharma. Now for folks who do not know, Sharma is the world's top leadership coaches. He comes in the top 5 leadership coaches in the world and whose clients include the big multinational corporates and the titans of various industries. Now the central message, the central powerful message which this book talks about is the fact that leadership has less to do with title and more to do with the influence a person has through his actions, through his words, through his conduct in day-to-day life. And he says that you need not be someone at the top positions, the so-called top positions which the world looks at, whether it's in a political landscape or in the corporate world. You can be a Uber driver, you can be a cab driver, you can be a pizza seller, you can be a carpenter, you can be a bathroom janitor. Essentially, you can be from any walk of life and still you can conduct yourself as a true leader. Because normally when we talk about leadership or when we hear about leadership in general, the connotation, the thought process, the images which come into our mind, either it's of a top political leader or it's of some leader of a corporate or someone in a top leadership position. But this particular book completely shackles that school of thought. It completely obliterates or destroys that school of thought, which suggests that you need a title to be a leader. Now the way this book is curated, it's in the form of a fictional story with central protagonist characters, and each character has a particular plot in that sequence, and through those stories their beautiful leadership lessons have been conveyed in different chapters. So if you want to read something which will completely upgrade your game, whether it can be in your professional sphere and personal sphere, I will highly recommend this book, The Leader Who Had No Title by Sharma. It's a phenomenal book. Now we will be doing a series of videos on the topics which have been discussed in this book, and in this first video on this particular topic, I will be talking about the first leadership conversation wherein the protagonist of the entire plot goes to meet a particular person called Anna, and Anna talks to him about the different leadership aspects, right? And one central theme of this book is, which it says that if you can breathe, you can lead. You need not have some natural talents, you need not be gifted in any way to practice leadership. There's a phenomenal book called Talent is Overrated. In that particular book, it is clearly mentioned that oftentimes we overrate talent, right? And success is more to do with consistent application, consistent focused effort with perseverance, and less to do with talent. If you look at the legendaries, if you look at the legends, right? There was a beautiful research which was done across the world's top 100 successful people, and one distinguishing characteristic among all these people was perseverance. They noted that these people were absolutely perseverant. They were consistent in their actions, in their goals, in their vision for the future, and that made them legends. In this book, it's clearly articulated that if you can breathe, you can lead. And there are certain elements which will completely shake this victimhood, this victim identity, which most of us sort of unconsciously like to be in. We give always excuses for not taking actions because we want to stay in that victimhood. Because victimhood always blames the outside circumstances for their problems. But true leadership, a person who is truly a leader, he will take responsibility for whatever has happened. He won't just blame things on the other person, but he will feel accountable and responsible for what has happened. And he will have that delicate sense of judgment wherein he'll know what are the things which he can change or what are the things which would require a different approach, a more matured approach for a particular situation. Now, given this mindset, given this thought process of a true leader, we will go through a particular different 5 concepts which is encapsulated by this acronym called IMAGE, which is talked about in this book in the first leadership conversation. It says IMAGE, wherein each word is basically highlighting, is basically asking us to put our attention on an essential aspect of leadership. Coming to this acronym IMAGE, right? So I in the IMAGE stands for innovation. Now when we talk about innovation, right? Innovation is something which is what the world pays you for, what the world adores you for. I'm reminded of Steve Jobs when he was having this conversation with this technical group. He had a very clear vision wherein he said that I want the icons of my phone, Apple iPhone, MacBook, so brilliantly curated that people would want to lick those icons. So that was his vision, and he really wanted that kind of creative innovation in the product in which which eventually became a hallmark of standard, right? It's now it's almost a status symbol to have that iPhone with you, the Apple iPhone. So that was a product of innovation. If you look at great leaders, they're always trying to innovate, because if you are not getting better than what you were yesterday, you are by default falling into the mediocrity creep. You are not going to be at the place where you are in if you are not moving forward. So by default you are moving backward. And the riskiest place to be in for a particular person is to be in that safe zone, where they are not innovating, where they are not constantly flexing their imaginations as to how I can improve this particular aspect of my work. Leaders, the titans of a particular fields, of various fields, they are always in the search of innovation. They always flex their imaginations as to what could be my next move to move beyond this particular aspect. Because if you look at the fears, if you even look at competition in diverse fields, right? The people who are innovating are the people who are successful. And the people who aren't innovating, they fall into this mediocrity creep. So this is the first lesson which was being talked about in this IMAGE, innovation, I for innovation. Now coming to the second letter, M. Now M stands for mastery. Mastery over the craft. I am reminded of a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. He said that if you are a sweeper, sweep the streets of the road like Picasso painting, or like Michelangelo sculpting a particular sculpture. Whatever walk of life you belong to, whatever work you're doing, do it with a level of mastery. Do it to such a deep level of involvement. Try to work on your particular skill. Try to master that particular skill set or particular work which you are doing. Because mastery is essential quality for greatness. The great leaders are masters in their crafts. So it's uber important. It is an indispensable requirement to master your craft. And as per Anders Ericsson, the person who did a lot of research on peak performance, he said that it requires 10,000 hours of focused practice on a particular craft to reach the level of mastery. Now you can Google Anders Ericsson and who talks about this concept of 10,000 hours. What is important here is not 10,000 hours, right? The important aspect is the amount of dedication, conviction and assertiveness one needs to have to develop this mindset to endeavor towards mastery. Because if you are trying to master your craft, if you are trying to constantly see how I can become a maestro of your craft, you are on the path of leadership. Because let's remember, every maestro was once an amateur. And since they are consistently on the path of mastery, they become legends. I'm reminded of a beautiful excerpt, a beautiful story of Picasso, the legendary painter, right? Picasso is the legendary artist which everybody knows about. Once Picasso was just roaming around the market, and a lady looks at him, and she goes absolutely awestruck by Picasso, and she just rushes towards him, and she says, "Picasso, I'm a huge fan of yours. I want you to draw something for me." And she gives him a canvas, a white canvas, for him to scribble something upon it. Now Picasso takes that canvas, and it takes about 15 seconds for him to draw a particular painting, or a piece of art for that lady. And after that 15 seconds, with a smile on his face, Picasso hands over that piece of canvas. And with utter gratitude, that lady thanks him. And before she could leave, Picasso says, "Ma'am, that would cost you $1 million. And the lady is absolutely awestruck and completely baffled. "But sir, you just took 15 seconds to draw that painting." Picasso, with a brief pause, says, "You're right, ma'am, it took 15 seconds to draw that for you, but it took 15 years for me to master that." So essentially, it's not about the time a particular craft is created, but the amount of effort it took for it to complete in 15 seconds. It took 15 years for Picasso to master that piece of craft in 15 seconds. That is the level of mastery which we are talking about. Now coming to the third element of that acronym IMAGE, A stands for authenticity. We live in a world where we are so much accustomed to the way the world is. We want to always seek this public validation, and in the constant influx of trying to seek public validation, we lose ourselves. Ralph Waldo Emerson put it beautifully when he said, in a world which is constantly trying to make you something else, it's leaders who are able to be themselves. Leadership is all about authenticity. If you are someone who's absolutely clear about what he is deep within, and he also showcases to the world what he is within, that is authenticity. If you are someone who shows something to the world and is something inside is someone else, then you are not authentic. And people can gauge that. Your work would also turn out to be inauthentic. Authenticity is a hallmark quality of leadership. If you are absolutely authentic and true to your work, that the world can sense. But if you are an inauthentic person will never be able to gain trust, to be able to build confidence among people, to be able to build a sense of credibility. You need to be absolutely authentic. If you look at the biggest brands, the biggest corporate brands, the people who have been extremely successful, the focus has always been on their credibility. If you are known to be a credible person, if you are known to be an authentic person, people would naturally gravitate you for your services. This is what has been told in this particular framework of authenticity. And G in the acronym IMAGE stands for guts. Now, in a world which is so absolutely stuck in the cobwebs of complacency, when you try to approach your life through this mindset, through this prism of leadership, there are going to be people who are going to pull you down. Fulton Sheen said that jealousy is the tribute mediocrity pays to the genius. So essentially, when you are going through the road less traveled, people are going to pull you down, but you need to understand that if people pull you down, that is an indication for you to rise even higher. Because there's something which you are doing, that's why people are pulling you down. Something which is unconventional, something which is not as per the conventional norm of mediocrity, you are pursuing. And once you do that, people are not going to like it. People are going to find it extremely uncomfortable and extremely difficult to digest. But still, if you have the guts to progress in this path, if you have the guts to speak your truth, if you have the guts to move outside of your own comfort, outside of your own shackles of complacency, then you are moving towards leadership. Your definition of right and wrong is as per your definition, not as per what the world wants you to consider right and wrong. That is guts in action. And if you look at the world's greatest leaders, they are the people who have had an extremely strong spine. They don't blame the world for what has happened. They have absolute personal responsibility. They always have absolute personal responsibility for the things that happens in their life. And E in the image, in the acronym IMAGE, stands for ethics. You might innovate, you might master your craft, you might be authentic, you might be having amazing guts, but if you don't have this last pillar of ethics, if you are not an ethical person, if you choose dubious ways of achieving success, or if you try to pull down others while trying to achieve success, you are not going to progress much. Because it's not something to do with philosophy, it's not something to do with all the kinds of spiritual, it's not something which you can talk about law of karma or something like that. There is a profound psychological concept to it. Of course, law of karma is a different concept, but we are not talking about that here. We are talking about a psychological game which happens. When you indulge in unethical activities, what essentially is happening is, your self-image is coming down, and whatever achievements or whatever manifests in our life essentially boils down to our self-image. And when you indulge in unethical activities, you are falling down in your own eyes, and there cannot be anything worse than that, because you are not able to respect, because your self-respect is coming down unconsciously. Though consciously you might feel you're doing the right thing, but your subconscious knows, your soul knows what is right and what is wrong. And when you constantly indulge in what your soul and your subconscious mind thinks wrong, you are going to eventually manifest failure. You are eventually going to gravitate towards failure. And since you're not practicing ethics, sooner or later, truth comes out. Truth is like that sun which cannot be hidden for long. So self-image is extremely important. If you are someone who you deeply respect from within, if your actions, habits and behaviors reflect that identity, your self-image improves. And with this improvement of your self-image, your behaviors, your actions, your attitudes, everything drastically improves. So was my take on this beautiful concept of leading without a title. We will have further subsequent videos wherein we will be talking about different concepts of leadership, and this was the first leadership conversation in that particular book which talked about this innovation, mastery, authenticity, guts and ethics. Hope you really enjoyed this video, and people who have never gone through the content of this channel, I would urge you to watch my previous videos. The channel is mainly focused on topics of spirituality and personal development, and the main focus of this channel is to help you become your best version. Hope you enjoyed your video, and meet you in the next video. Thank you.